Hi guys, it's Onda from dawnofchange.com. In today's video I've got a really good treat for you guys. As you already know, for those of you who are following my blog and my YouTube channel, you would have noticed that a few weeks ago I interviewed an author, a really famous author called Bob Berg, who wrote the book The Go-Giver. In the interview he mentioned another author called Andrea Waltz, who wrote the book Go for No, which I really took to heart and actually bought the book and read it. I liked the book so much that I decided to reach out to Andrea and interview her personally and to talk about the book and to get her to talk about her thoughts and her ideas behind the book and why she decided to write it. It was a very insightful interview and I really did enjoy the interview, and I'm going to actually post it after this video, so I hope you guys enjoy it and take notes from it. Until then, thank you and I'll speak to you very soon. Hi guys, this is Onda from dawnofchange.com. In today's video I've got a massive treat for you guys. Today I'm interviewing a woman called Andrea Waltz, who's the author of Go for No. I actually first got to know her through Bob Berg, who was the guy that I firstly interviewed a couple of weeks ago. And he actually recommended this book to me, Go for No, which I'll show you right here. It's a really great book. I actually read the book in literally 2 hours. It was such a good read. And I had to reach out to the author, Andrea, and call her out for interview. So yeah, Andrea, welcome to my show. I'm really glad to see you and talk to you.
Thank you. I'm so glad to do this with you.
That's great. So yeah, tell us a bit about yourself. Like, how did you get started writing the book? What got you to write the book in the first place?
Well, kind of a long story, but let me make it short. I met my husband, Richard Fenton, who's my co-author, who's really the main author of the book, about 15 years ago. And we would do speaking and training for retail companies. Anybody that you would find in a mall or a shopping center, we taught this concept, Go for No, to. And it was the thing that everybody loved. It was the one idea, the one strategy, the one concept that everybody loved. And so we said we should write just a book just on this one little idea of helping people overcome failure, rejection, hearing the word no. And that's what we did. And we wrote the book, and at first it didn't go anywhere. I mean, literally, it just was not very exciting. No, we thought that the sales would be huge. We were very excited about it, but it just didn't move very quickly. Things always take longer than you hope. And so we kind of let it linger for a few years. And in 2007, we said, people are really loving this book. We got letters and emails and phone calls of people telling us how it was changing their lives. And so we said, let's really focus on it. So we have made it our mission since about 2007 to only talk about Go for No, to really teach people this idea that by hearing no, they can actually more successful. So that's really what we do. We speak on the topic, we do interviews like this, we write on the topic, and since then the book has just taken off. We've sold I think over 250,000 copies. We're in the top 10 on Amazon often. So it's been very exciting for us to make such an impact with this one idea.
That's brilliant. I mean, yeah, I actually noticed that, that it is a #1 bestseller, and that really fascinated me when I first read it, because it is actually a really good book to read. Like, as I said, I read it in 2 hours. What I found most interesting is the fact that when you first wrote the book, you wasn't too sure whether it was going to do well, so you was kind of experiencing that kind of rejection yourself. So would you say that you kind of got over it when you got that feedback from the consumer base saying that the book was actually worth a read? Is that what actually motivated you to carry on with it?
Yeah, it's kind of ironic that people who preach about being persistent and not giving up, kind of, but we got a little discouraged because we thought that we'd make progress faster. We just thought that, and people did like the book, but again, when you don't necessarily hear the feedback that you want right away, it can get you down.
Yeah.
But sometimes things always take longer, and you can't allow what you perceive as maybe the response that you want. If it doesn't happen right away, you've got to it takes a lot more work than you usually think. And so you're right. We weren't really following our own advice, but after seeing some movement and seeing some progress, and we said, we're not really being the Go for No people that we claim to be. We shouldn't give up on this book so soon. We've got to get out there. It's got to, the marketing has to take place. You've got to get the message out. And sometimes it takes a long time for that momentum. And, you know, we still work on it every day. We work on it every day, even now, because quite frankly, I'm not going to be satisfied until we've got 1 million copies out in the world. And so we're about 25% of the way there. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us still.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, the fact that you've got a goal of making 1 million sales is a massive milestone, isn't it? You know, and the fact that you're carrying on. I think sometimes you need that kind of external reference point to say that, you know, what you're doing is actually the right thing, because it spurs you on. And that's one thing that I've experienced with, you know, what I'm doing, you know. Like in the beginning, it's like a lonely journey because you don't really have anyone there to spur you on and to kind of tell you that you're doing the right thing. And sometimes you kind of need to motivate yourself. It's really difficult. So, yeah, you know, kudos for that. I really am, you know, inspired by it. Yeah, the book actually, I can actually relate to the actual character a lot because the character in the book is actually the same age as me. He's 28 years old. And, you know, and I sometimes feel that I'm actually really old, you know, being 28. I'm going to be 29 in 2 months, but I still feel like there's so much more I need to achieve. And I think the book kind of gives me like that realistic kind of idea of my age and that I'm still young. I've still got a lot to achieve in my life. But, I actually asked the question, I've actually written it down. The character learns that in order to become successful, he would have to experience a series of no's in his life. Like, could you elaborate on that, based on the book?
Character does what?
So yeah, the character learns that in order to become successful, that he would have to experience a series of no's in his life.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, the character. The book is a little interesting because what happens to our main character is he meets an older version of himself.
Yeah.
And the older version is 10 years older than he is in the book. And the older version of himself is very successful. And of course, the younger version is wondering, well, you know, how did you get so successful? Meaning the other version of him. And they both had one experience. And the experience was the idea that they were working, that the one character was working in a retail store. The customer comes in, and one of them learned and actually integrated into his philosophy the idea that you don't stop until the customer says, no, I'm done. The other one didn't learn that message. And so really the lesson here is that whether it's from a retail perspective, a sales perspective, is that when you don't stop a sale until the customer says no, and what happens in this story is the customer never says no. The salesperson just kept selling and selling, and then in the end, he just decided that the sale was over, and he rang him up, and he was finished. That's kind of the core story of the book. And our more successful character, the older version of him, teaches our main character, in other words, the 28-year-old version, that he needs to embrace failure. And by failure, we mean hearing no more often. He needs to embrace it. He needs to be willing to hear no more often. He needs to want to hear no more often. And that the surest way to mediocre performance in business and in life is to avoid hearing no. But the faster way to greater levels of success is to go for no, to be willing and wanting to hear no, to want to fail. And by doing so, our successful version is really successful because he didn't shy away from hearing no. The younger version of himself just ignored the message.
Yeah. And that was the biggest takeaway that he learned from his older self, that he got to experience that kind of rejection. And he saw a glimpse of that in the beginning, didn't he? Because I don't want to spoil the story to anyone who hasn't read it yet, but he actually sees like a bit of, he sees like a sheet of paper like on his wall, doesn't he? Like with the 5 principles. Could you go over that for me? Like, could you explain how that came about? The 5 principles of no.
I think you're talking about the 5 failure levels, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yes, the 5 failure levels, right. So, you know, the first failure level is the ability to fail. Everyone has the ability to fail, but, you know, a lot of people see failure as negative. They view failure as negative. And, you know, the reality is we're all taught and trained in life to avoid failure. And so no one wants to be perceived as a failure. They think that they are a failure, so they don't want to fail. Well, so everybody has that basic ability to fail. Level 2 is the willingness to fail, meaning you say, I see that if I'm willing to fail, if I'm willing to hear no, that I could be more successful. And what happens is you create more opportunities in your life by not playing it so safe and by saying, I'm going to take a chance and I'm going to risk failing. So the willingness is the next level. And,
Yeah.
a few people can get to the willingness part, and they can stay there for a significant amount of time. They can be willing. But the next level, the third level, is really important and it's really exciting. And that's the wantingness to fail.
Yeah.
That's understanding that, it's like, I want to hear no more often. I want to try some new things. I know that if I put myself in a position to fail, that amazing things and opportunities will open up to me. So the wantingness is really important. And then the next level is really kind of fascinating. It is failing exponentially. It's failing through a team. It's failing. It's understanding that if failing is important. Oh, did I miss one? Failing exponentially, failing bigger, failing faster. What's the fourth one? I think I screwed that up. Failing exponentially.
Oh, look at the book. There's the ability to fail, willingness to fail, wantingness to fail, failing bigger and faster, and
I forgot the order. Failing, yeah. So number 4 is failing bigger and
yeah.
faster, and that really is, being willing to get big no's, is going for things that are exciting, going for things that are big, not playing small. And then and then number 5 is failing exponentially, and that's the team failure. That's understanding that if you can enlist people with you as a team and you can all do it together, whether it's a sales team or a direct marketing, network marketing team, if everybody can do that together, then amazing things can happen rather than just individually.
And it's the 5th level that I read that kind of made me realize that you've got to fail as much as you can, and if you can do it in a team, then it will make you more successful in the long run, which really fascinated me when I read it. I was like, that was like the key to understanding the actual book. So how would you enforce these principles to someone who was, like, let's say, too afraid to be told no? I mean, because I asked this because in my past it was very difficult to, take action knowing that the potential for failure would be really high. I mean, what would your advice be to someone like that?
Well, that's where everybody starts, and the the trick here is to try to remove your ego out of it. And you literally have to reprogram the way you think about it. Because again, we've all been taught and trained that, failure is bad. And so one of the things that we teach people to do is to do a go for no challenge. To literally, if you're afraid to hear no and you're afraid to fail, well, that's not going to just go away overnight. That takes some time to reprogram. But what happens is that you can see great results if you just get into action and if you try it. So for some people, we say you don't even necessarily have to do this in a business sense. Try going for no in a restaurant. Try doing go for no dating. There's all these different ways that you can ask for certain things, get an upgrade to a better room in a hotel, get a better table in a restaurant. There's different things that you can practice and see, wow, I was nervous about asking, and I asked, and I got what I wanted, and I got the result. And you can celebrate that. Yeah. Now, the one thing I do want to caution, though, is that if you try asking for something and you get a no, that you should still reward and celebrate that, because there's a tendency to say, oh, well, I failed, I didn't get the result. But you see that you didn't die, that you survived, and you're a better person for it. And you learn over time that asking things, and then you can transition into business things and asking for the sale and asking for the appointment or asking for whatever it is that you want, and see that, it's not that bad, and that your ego, that when you first start in the process, you're scared and you're anxious and you're nervous, and you see that it's really not that big a deal. And the more you do it and the more activity you engage in, you just eventually you find it's easy. And we have people tell us all the time, it becomes hard to get no, because the whole idea is have fun with it, be relaxed, don't make this like this horrible process where you're stressed out and you're fearful. Just have fun with it, and then the results start coming.
It's true. I mean, I can relate this like to my life in a lot of ways because I had a friend of mine like asked me recently, like, how do you actually avoid like being rejected? And I'm like, well, if you think about your life in context, you get rejected every day. Like, if you go to a burger joint, for example, and order a burger, and they say to you, we've run out of this burger, why don't you try this? Like, you're not going to feel bad about it because it happens in your daily life. Like, it's not, there's no value in it. So yeah, right about the whole ego thing. You got to kind of take away that kind of attachment to failure and just be willing to go through it and take it as a process. It's the best way to learn, isn't it? Really, when you think about it.
Exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head is people are always looking for a way to avoid rejection.
Yeah.
And the goal with Go for No is you can't avoid rejection. If you avoid hearing no, if you avoid ever being rejected, well, how are you ever going to get to yes? And that tends to be what happens is that people, because they avoid that rejection, they only look for opportunities where they're guaranteed to get a yes. Well, you know how hard it is to have a guaranteed yes, right?
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine ever trying to date, right? And you're looking for the one girl who you think's going to say yes to you. Well, that's almost impossible. You don't know, right?
You're never going to know.
And so you'd literally reduce your chances with all these girls to find the one who's going to say yes. Well, that's crazy. You know that you're going to have to get some no's. It's the same in business and sales. It's the same everywhere. You never know where the yeses are. So you have to go through some rejection. You have to hear no. And what we're saying is the more that you do that, the more opportunities open up. And don't put the weight of the world on your shoulders. Don't worry about looking like a failure. You are not a failure. It's you failed 1 time, 2 times, 10 times. Good for you. Now move on and keep going.
Yeah, it's true. Going back to the book, why did you decide to write it as a story and not as a how-to book? Could you explain that?
Yeah, well, first of all, Richard and I both are frustrated screenwriters.
Right.
We love writing fictional stories. We've written screenplays. We love the idea of writing in story. And we think that people learn best in story. And so, yeah, we could have written a book that just says, hey, go for no, and here's why, and here's how, and all of these things. But we thought it would be more fun and and people would attach themselves to the story, kind of like you did. I like that you saw yourself in the character. That's kind of our goal is, and you really saw yourself, like literally, it's a male character, same age, that you felt like that could be you. Well, we want everyone to feel that way in a way. And so that if you feel that that's you, that you feel you can relate to the character, and by the end, you're pulling for the character. You're hoping that he gets the concept and that he can become successful and fulfill his destiny. And of course, his destiny is to be like the future version of himself. I mean, that's where we want him to go eventually. And so writing in that story is we just feel that it's much more impactful.
It's definitely true. And I understood the concept of the story, like basically like his interpretation of the dream wasn't really a dream, what it was, because I think about it all the time. Like I always imagine myself how I'm like in the future, and I always try to backwards engineer what I could do to become that person. And I can understand how how that concept came about for the story, and I think it's really cool, really really cool.
Okay.
If you could give someone one nugget of advice based on the book to take away and use it in their life, other than the story's main theme, what would it be and why?
There's so many, but I think my favorite, I guess, overall theme is not being afraid to fail. It really is. It's understanding that failure is a part of success. It's part of the journey, and that when you avoid failing, when you avoid failure, because you think you're somehow protecting yourself, you're actually reducing your chances for success. And that every time that you are given a choice to ask for something, to take a chance, to always go for it, to be able to do that risk, to take that chance, and to risk messing up and looking foolish, that's okay. That's part of the journey. And that if you reach out for those potential failures and you want to fail, that level three of the failures, which is so important, that you have such a great opportunity for great things to happen. That's really my favorite message.
Yeah, I just love the theme, like the quote of it underneath the book, like yes is the destination, no is how you get there. You know, it's such a great quote. I mean, actually, I'm going to put it up on my wall and just read it every time I get stuck. It's really cool. Okay,
Good.
so what's next for Andrea? What do we are we you know, are we looking forward to seeing some more books from you in the future, or
Well,
what's next?
a couple years ago, actually hasn't been all that long, I guess about 2 years ago now, in 2011, we wrote another fable, and it was called $1,000,000 Year. And $1,000,000 Year was, or is, I should say, just for people in direct sales and network marketing. It is not go for no by any means. It's, and we haven't sold nearly as many as go for no, but that's,
It's a start, you
that,
know. It's a start.
again, we're not going to give up on it though.
Yeah, no,
We won't give up on it.
not at all.
But literally, yeah, literally, for me, it really is to continue to get this message out. I sometimes, there's a tendency for people who write books, people who speak, to always go and move to the next thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I have to tell you that I'm crazy passionate about this message. I could talk about this all day long, every day, and I do. So for me, I want to keep going and keep going, and I really don't plan on resting with Go for No until we've got 1,000,000 books out there, until 1,000,000 people have heard us live, because that's ultimately what I want to have happen.
I would love to help you as well, because you know I've actually started a blog that is very similar, and that, you know, how to overcome anxiety and fear, how to become more self-confident, and I think your message is actually very similar. It's like a good kind of, you know, it's like a good marriage in a way. So I'd love to help you promote your book. That's the reason why I'm interviewing you, because I think it's a really powerful book and powerful message. I mean, what's the best way? I mean, in that you know scenario, what's the best way for people to get hold of your book and to stay in touch with you? Like, if they wanted to buy the book, where could they go?
I believe that it's on Amazon in the US, and it's on Amazon in the UK as well.
Right.
So Amazon's easy, and then our website, which is goforno.com too.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, that's about it, Andrea. I suppose. Yeah, it was great talking to you. As you know, I loved. You know, it was great meeting you. You know, and talking to you and talking about your book. Yeah, I'd like to bring you on again at some point in the future, because I'm looking to start a podcast in the near future, and that'll be my next big milestone, because I've never actually started a podcast before. So I'll definitely invite you on again in the future and talk further, if that's okay with you.
Oh, absolutely, because there's more that we can talk about. Absolutely.
I'm sure. All right, Angela, it was nice talking to you, and we'll definitely speak very soon, okay?
You too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You take care. Have a lovely day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
So there you have it, guys. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. I certainly, really did enjoy talking to Andrea, and I loved, what she had to say and her thoughts and wisdoms behind the book. I definitely learned a lot from it, and I hope you learned something from it also. If you want to hear more from Andrea, please check out her website, www.goforno.com. I've listed a link to it below this video, so you should be able to see it. If you want to get hold of the book also, please make sure that you check out the link underneath, which I've included. It's going to be an affiliate link, so I'll make some form of commission from it if you decide to buy from my link. If you do buy it, I really do appreciate it. So yeah, this is about it, and I hope you've enjoyed the interview, and I certainly did. And until next time, thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you very soon.